All right. So, you know how we're always trying to stay ahead of the curve and figure out like what's actually changing the game, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, today we are diving into a topic that is, well, it's called vibe coding. And it really caught my eye, this article in UX Collective, you know, that site.
Oh, yeah.
They
Yep.
were talking about like, imagine just describing the app you want, like in plain English,
Oh,
and then AI just builds it for you.
that's why. I mean, like, what really struck me was it's almost like flipping the whole idea of how we make software like on its head, you know?
It's a total paradigm shift,
Yeah,
right?
and the author of this article, he's like a self-proclaimed old school coder. Like he's been doing this forever, and he said even he like laughed at the idea at first.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Just shows you how fast things are moving.
Absolutely. So that's exactly what we're going to try to unpack in this deep dive. Like, what is this vibe coding thing really all about? What are the real benefits, but also what are some of the potential pitfalls and really like what does this mean for all of us? Like how we're going to interact with technology going forward.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think a good place to start is this idea the article brings up. It's the great democratization cycle.
Okay.
And they use the example of photography, right? Like
Hmm.
you think about back in the day, you had to have a dark room,
Right.
all this equipment,
It was so complicated.
and then all of a sudden, everyone has a phone and everyone's a photographer.
Right. Just like boom, everyone's an expert.
Exactly.
Right.
And you see this pattern over and over again, like publishing, music video production, like
Right.
technology just keeps breaking down these barriers.
So basically, they're saying software is the next frontier.
Exactly. And we've already seen like some steps in that direction. Right. We
Right.
had coding itself, and then you had these low code, no code platforms.
Yeah, like Squarespace and stuff for
Yeah.
websites.
Exactly. And even like AI assistants like GitHub Copilot that can suggest code as you're writing it. But now it's like vibe coding is taking it to a whole other level
Yeah.
using natural language with platforms like Windsurf and Replit.
It's like giving everyone a film studio in their pocket.
Exactly. And the author, he actually like walks through this example where he built this app called Daddy Time.
Okay.
And it took him like less than 30 minutes using this platform, Cursor AI.
What?
He was just describing what he wanted the app to do, like, connect to local events and the weather in his calendar, and
Right.
boom, it just appeared.
No coding.
No coding.
That is incredible. Okay, so it sounds amazing, right? But the article obviously goes deeper than that. So what are some of the downsides they talk about?
Right. Well, one of the big concerns is this idea of a craft crisis.
Okay.
Like, if we're letting AI write all the code, do we actually lose touch with how software works at a fundamental level?
Right. Do we stop understanding the nuts and bolts?
Exactly. And, will that lead to like less efficient programs that are harder to maintain, all sorts of issues?
That makes sense.
And they actually quote a Microsoft engineer in the article who's really skeptical about AI's ability to handle those more complex tasks like long-term maintenance. And he was saying that sometimes AI just generates what he calls nonsense.
Interesting.
And there's also this tech CTO who warns about all these hidden complexities and security risks that could be lurking in code that's, just generated so easily.
Right, because if it's that easy to make an app, it's probably that easy to make a bad app too, right?
Exactly. And it's not just about the technical skills either.
Yeah.
They bring up this really interesting concept of creative debt.
Okay, I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah. So basically the idea is that if we all start relying on these AI prompts to build all of our software, what happens to creativity?
Ah, I see. So like everything will start to look and feel the same.
Exactly.
Right.
Like imagine a world where every app just feels generic. There's no soul, there's no personality.
No spark.
Yeah, that would be pretty bleak.
Right, and that leads to this other issue, the knowledge gap.
Okay.
The article talks about how there will be this divide between people who actually understand the fundamentals, who can really work with AI and guide it effectively, and those who are totally reliant on whatever the AI spits out.
So you'll have the people who can really like fine tune the AI versus the people who are just basically hoping for the best.
Exactly. And they quote this line from The Guardian that's like, now you don't even need code to be a programmer, but you do still need expertise.
So true. Like, who do you call when the AI hits a wall? And there's one other angle they talk about too, which is the sort of the Swiss Army knife imperative. Like,
Yeah,
we are obsessed with efficiency, right?
totally. Yeah.
So vibe coding basically throws fuel on that fire because now more people can build more tools more quickly. So the bottleneck isn't the actual building anymore. It's figuring out what problems are actually worth solving. Absolutely. And they mentioned that Replit's CEO said that something like 75% of their customers never actually read a single line of code.
Wow. Okay. So really interesting stuff. So what are like some of the key takeaways the article offers for how we should be thinking about all of this? Like how do we adapt to this new world?
Right. Well, they propose a few mental models that I think are really helpful. Like, for example, thinking about this split between creation and maintenance.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it's going to be super easy to create things,
Yeah.
but what about maintaining them over time?
Right, because software is never really finished, right? It's always evolving.
Exactly. And then they also talk about how you're going to see these different tiers of software creators emerging. So you'll have like the prompt engineers who are really good at guiding the AI,
Okay.
and then the solution architects who can design these complex systems, and the system innovators who are pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So basically, we need to start thinking about software development more like directing a movie than writing a script.
That's a great analogy. And one of the most important points, I think, is that the author really emphasizes that we need to learn to work with AI, not just let it take over.
So it's like a collaboration, right? Not a replacement.
Exactly. Learn the basics, use AI as a partner, understand what it's suggesting, don't be afraid to challenge its solutions.
Yeah. I mean, we can't just blindly accept whatever it gives us, right?
Exactly. You have to have that critical thinking. You have to be able to assess the quality of what it's producing. And they also talk about this idea of developing T-shaped expertise.
Okay, so what's that?
So it means like having a deep understanding of your core area of expertise, but also having a broad understanding of all the different fields that touch on it, so you can really connect the dots and see the bigger picture.
I like that. And it sounds like this whole vibe coding thing is going to change the game for distribution too, right? Like getting your stuff out there in the world.
Absolutely. Like they talk about this example of Peter Levels, who built and launched a whole job site in like 6 hours using vibe coding.
6 hours.
6 hours.
That's insane.
It's crazy. Like, so the time it takes to go from idea to market is just collapsing. So that means understanding your audience, being able to market your product effectively, that becomes even more important than the actual coding skills themselves.
Yeah, it's all about that speed and agility.
Exactly.
Right.
And, the article even hints that vibe coding might end up disrupting the whole no-code, low-code movement, because it's even simpler than that. It's just like describe what you want and the AI handles the rest.
Wow. Okay, so clearly a lot to think about, but I think the final message of the article is really important. They talk about the need for a thoughtful evolution, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to make sure that AI is amplifying human creativity, not stifling it.
Yeah.
It's got to be a tool, not a crutch.
Exactly. And that final line really stuck with me. The code of the future shouldn't just run, it should sing.
That's beautiful. Okay, so after all that, what do you think is like the core takeaway for our listeners? Like, what should they be walking away with from this deep dive?
I think the big thing is that vibe coding is a huge shift. It's making software creation so much faster and more accessible. But it also brings up all these really important questions about how we maintain essential knowledge and, make sure we're still fostering genuine innovation.
Yeah, it makes you think about your own projects, right? Like, how do you balance using these crazy, powerful new AI tools while still understanding what's going on under the hood?
Absolutely. And that actually leads perfectly to our final thought for everyone listening today. As AI becomes more and more integrated into how we create things, how do we safeguard that human spark, the one that leads to truly innovative and meaningful outcomes? How do we avoid ending up with a world where everything is just, good enough?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one to ponder. All right. Well, on that note, we'll wrap it up here. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and be sure to check out the show notes for links to the article and all the resources we mentioned.
And let us know what you think about all this vibe coding stuff. It's a wild new world out there.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep innovating.